Well, today we're going to talk about everyone's favorite scumbag, Ernest Hemingway. I think people have like a weird fascination with other scumbags, murderers, serial killers. They find it so interesting. I think I kind of have that relationship with Ernest Hemingway. I think the man is really interesting to me, and I would love to learn more. I don't really know too much about him, but so like a gifted 12-year-old, I might be late to the party to be talking about things like this, but I'm still at the party. For those who didn't know, I never really cared too much about literature. It never was something I was concerned with. It wasn't like a pastime of mine. And over the past year, a lot of things have happened in my life, and it has turned into like my creature comfort. It's been so awesome for me. So I know you've been there, done that in terms of like what I'm reading and stuff, but it's new to me and it's awesome to me. Case in point is last year, my favorite book that I read was The Stranger by Albert Camus. And it's like, yeah, you and every other 10-year-old. But really, it was the first time I've experienced that. So it was important to me, and it was an awesome experience. And like, honestly, I think if you've never read it, there's no reason not to. It's a really approachable book. The translation I read was good. I had no issue with it. I found it to be really manageable in terms of length. Blah blah blah. I could keep ranting about it, but that's not why I want to make this video. So maybe about a month ago, I picked this bad boy up. I bought it from the library for, I don't remember if it was a quarter or 50 cents, but I had absolutely no idea. That's really how I operate in terms of books. I like to go in completely blind. I didn't introduce it. It is The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. I think in high school we read The Old Man and the Sea. I don't really count that because in my reading life, it is pre-stroke and post-stroke. Anything that I read before, I did not take seriously, and I think things would be different reading now. So even if I tell you I hated that in high school, there's a really good chance I could like it now. I have no idea. Maybe I'll get to it someday. So this book I finished reading today, and I don't even know what I want to say. It's not really, I don't know. I don't aim to make this like a book summary or a spark notes or anything like that. I finished it, and I wanted to briefly talk about it. Maybe it'll be helpful for you if you're on the fence. If you have any little interest in reading it, maybe I could push you either way. I don't know why, but the classics draw me in. I think the reasoning is there seems to be sort of a feedback loop, and I kind of want to be involved. Great minds inspired great literature, which inspired great minds. And it's like this cyclical thing. I saw it on the shelf, and I was like, why not? To be able to buy books that cheap is amazing. I think that's so cool. Unfortunately, most of the books there you would expect to find on a 85-year-old bingo player's bookshelf, like Christian self-help books, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, there's a market for those, but that's not really what I want to read, even at that price point. I didn't really pick it up right away, but when I did, I don't know. It didn't really start off that strong for me. I was left thinking at several points of this book, where is this going? It kind of is a weird amorphous blob right now. If you ask me again in a month, I'll probably feel different about it. But so I didn't really get that into it till it was probably about halfway over. That's kind of really similar to, I made a video about The Master and Margarita. I don't know if that video will ever see the light of day, but the way I felt about that book was it was really good from page 1 until about halfway through. And then it kind of was like really quickly trying to tie off the loose ends. I don't know. I just kind of fell off in the second part. Maybe that has more to do with my attention span than anything. I'm not really sure. But with this book, The Sun Also Rises, I found maybe about the first half of the book to be kind of and then really, I'm trying to figure out how much I want to say about it. Really, when the main characters got to Spain, it kind of picked up for me, and it turned into something awesome for me. Maybe not for you. I don't know. I find it really interesting because before I started reading this, I was spending some time gathering resources for what I wanted to read this year. And by resources, I mean I was trying to make a list. Brand new year, well, not anymore, but it was. And I wanted to kind of roadmap my year a little bit. I mean, I am definitely a mood reader, but I wanted to kind of have my bookshelf ready for options. I wanted to be able to give my mood a place to go. Holy shit, I drew a blank. I was watching some videos, and Hemingway is often brought up in people's top 50, top 20 lists. It's not always the same book, which is very interesting to me. But another thing that's interesting to me is everyone kind of remarks about his writing style. He's often described as being kind of oafish and brutish. I don't know what adjectives exactly, but I'm paraphrasing. It's kind of like, he did this, then he did this, then he did that. It's not really eloquently put for the most part. That kind of turned me off at first because I really like things to be poetic, and he's not really that way. But what I did find very interesting was, although he writes in a style I do not particularly enjoy, I did find a little charm in it, and I loved how, with this book at least, with that minimalist writing, with details that needed to be put in there from his perspective, he left me with a complete idea of everything in this book. Like, with the way things were described, there wasn't a lot of fluff. Everything he was saying had a point. That's the way I like to experience books. But he doesn't write in the way that I like to read them. This is interesting to me. The way he wrote, it made this book really easy to read. The only difficulty I had with my brain was sometimes the dialogue left me wondering who was saying what. But I wouldn't say that's necessarily his writing as opposed to the way my brain interprets what's going on. I read a few books this year, and I will say, so far this year, this one really resonated with me the most. I think that's interesting because of how many times when I was reading it, I thought to myself, where are you going with any of this? I'm not a literary scholar by any means. It's kind of a story about nothing, and then within the last few pages, maybe last 2 pages, it kind of puts that nothing into perspective and makes you understand the whole point, the whole summary of everything. If you take the story and kind of try to summarize it, it's not really how you would expect a story to go. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I think a lot of novels can be interpreted in many ways. Oops. Maybe I will let this video sit somewhere in a month. I'll try to think about it again. But if you were to ask me right now about this book, I thought it was well written. I thought the story was interesting. I really like how I felt like I was there. It was pretty easy to read, and I think it wasn't like too much to think about. So I would recommend it to anyone who just wants a book to read. I think it speaks volumes when something is easy to pick up. I've read a few books that felt like I was doing too much work to read it, and those can be rewarding at the end. But I think in terms of actively reading, like this was a good book to read because it was really easy for me to pick it up, read chapter or two, maybe 3, not think about anything too much. It was kind of like a good vacation for me mentally, and I would just pick it up here and there and take me to Spain. And I would say if you're on the fence for it, give it a try. I'm not really sure what the prices are for it now. I know some books you could find like dirt cheap for like a weird bootleg, not really bootleg, but I just bought a version of The Great Gatsby for $2 on Amazon, and I have no idea what version it is. Looks like someone made it. If you could find it cheap, which I believe you probably could, or maybe just get it from the library, I mean, I would definitely read it. If you do, let me know what you think. I would love to hear someone else's opinion about it. I think that's one of the biggest pleasures about reading, is to be able to share the experience of it. It's like when you read it, you lived it. Then when your friend reads it, they have the same experience, and you could kind of talk about what you felt about it. I don't know. It's cool to me. But yeah, if you read it, let me know what you thought, and especially if you liked it. Actually, if you didn't like it, I want to hear why. Let me know how I'm wrong. That would be great too. Thank you. And I love you.